What's happening, tabletop gamers? My name is LeunameGames. Welcome back to LeunameGames Unboxes. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Tiny Epic Crimes by Scott Almes and published by Gamelyn Games. Let's have a look at the back here and see what this is about. In the city of Echo Ridge, film producer Donnie Moretti, the mayor's son, was murdered in his penthouse last night. The mayor wants this case closed before the press sink their teeth into it. You have 48 hours till the lid on this thing blows clean off, and then it's all-out gang war. In Tiny Epic Crimes, players are officers of the law working to crack a murder case and thwart the mobster activity in the city. The game is won if the murderer is correctly identified when time runs out. This sounds vaguely familiar to a game I've heard of called Police Precinct. I haven't played that one, but I know the concept behind it, and it sounds very similar to this. And the theme, I definitely enjoy. I like the idea of being a policeman. So with all that said, let's have a look and see what does Tiny Epic Crimes have to offer us. The game comes with a whole bunch of clue tokens, and these are what you are going to be looking for to help you figure out who the murderer is. There are 5 different types of clues. There is search, witness, informant, stakeout, and holding. Each of these will give you some level of benefit to helping you figure out who the murderer is by enabling you to narrow it down so that you can collect evidence on who the murderer is. And speaking of evidence, there are 5 evidence envelopes that come with the game, and each of these are related to one of the different clue tokens. As you can see, the weapon is related to the holding token, getaway is related to the stakeouts, forensics is related to the search, etc., etc. Anytime you collect evidence, you'll place the evidence in the appropriate slots of the actual envelope. And I can say with confidence that these actually do work very well. The supposed suspects that could be the murderer do slide in fairly well, although depending on the envelope, you may have some difficulty at first, but after some time, they'll get much easier to slide them in, which is very nice. Also, I am very glad to say that the symbology on the various envelopes are very easy to read, so you shouldn't have any issues telling which envelope belongs to which, even if you do have some issues seeing color. There's one more envelope that comes with the game, and that's the murder envelope. Just like the rest of them, it has a little slot that you will slide a card into, and this is going to contain who the murderer is. Speaking of murderer, there are a whole bunch of suspect cards that come with the game, and these are what you are trying to whittle down in order to figure out who the murderer is. Each of these cards has the suspect diagram in the middle, along with a symbol on the outside relating to each of the types of evidence that you are trying to find. Now you may be wondering why it's so difficult to actually see these. You're actually supposed to have a difficult time seeing them because the game comes with a magnifying glass, and you're actually supposed to use that to help identify the symbols and the suspects on each of the cards. And I can say with confidence that with this magnifying glass, identifying the symbols and the suspect is very easy. It shows up very well on the magnifying glass, so you shouldn't have any issues with telling what the symbols are, as well as having this red magnifying set inside a couple of the evidence envelopes on the back side. As you can see, each of these has a little section of that red magnifying power on some point of the envelope somewhere, and that is going to be how you reveal each of the type of evidence that is on the cards, which you can then use to help narrow down the suspects. There is one headquarters card that comes with the game, and it is double-sided, although it's exactly the same on both sides, which I guess it's nice. At least it doesn't look cheap, and that's a bonus. And this shows you where the headquarters is, as well as having 3 slots, and that is where the 3 holding tokens will be placed. There's also a whole bunch of city cards that come with the game, and these are going to make up the city. You'll take these cards and you'll lay them out in a grid, and that is what will make up the city that you're going to travel around. A lot of these cards are the same, but some of these will actually have these little symbols here relating to a type of clue token, and that is going to be the token that will be placed on the card at some point, whether it's through setup or maybe it's through playing the game, whatever it may be. You also may have noticed that some of the symbols actually don't relate to the tokens, like this one, and that is for in-game effects that will show up in the game as well. Same thing with this one here, as well as this one, and these, like I said, relate to in-game events that will show up later on. There's also a set of evidence tokens that come with the game, and this is meant to help you identify where on the board the evidence that you are trying to figure out can actually be. There's also a whole bunch of event tokens that come with the game, and it is just that. Events that will happen throughout the game that you will also have to deal with at some point in addition to trying to solve the crime. And then there is a set of die tokens that come with the game, one for 2 types of dice. And these, I'm assuming, are going to be used to represent maybe potential substitutes instead of rolling the dice, but that's just a guess. They are double-sided, and they are the same on both sides, which is fine, I suppose. It does make them look a lot nicer. And I waited until now to say this, but all of these tokens are also very thick, very sturdy, so that's very nice, so you won't have to worry about bending them. Speaking of dice, there are 2 dice that come with the game, and it's very interesting that they decided to give the dice a shape of a bullet, which is actually really cool. I'm actually very impressed that they decided to go with this. It looks a lot more fascinating and a lot cooler instead of just generic 6-sided dice, although it does make them a little bit harder to roll because they'll only roll in one direction. Also, on a positive note with the dice, the sides and the faces are ingrained, which is very nice, which means they are going to last a lot longer. There are 4 officer mats that come with the game, and they are double-sided depending on which mode you would like to play on. You have the standard mode, which is competitive mode, or you have the cooperative mode. And each of these has different aspects for it depending on which side you're playing as. For example, the cooperative mode has a summary for all the basic actions that you can do, but also special actions that can only be done by a specific officer. However, each of them also has a badge level, and these badge levels are how you can get better stuff. And you do these by collecting the evidence tokens, or the clue tokens rather. Each time you collect a clue token, you can increase her badge level. And when you get to a certain point, you can draw cards that can help you in some way. On the other side is similar to the cooperative side. However, they all have the same actions that they can do on their turn. And they're all divided up into daytime and nighttime. So depending on the time of day, your actions are restricted to what you can do. Similarly, they all have a badge level that you can increase to get stuff later on in the game, whether by collecting clue tokens or in the standard version, if you were to arrest a gangster, that can also allow you to increase your level. And I can say with confidence that for the most part, these abilities are pretty easy to see. The symbology is easy to see, so you shouldn't have any issues with that, as well as the text for the most part on these cards are pretty easy to see. You may have a little difficulty seeing the pink and the bright blue there, but other than that, it's very well done, very nice to see, very easy to read. On the other side is a similar thing, very easy to read text for the most part, although once again, it could provide some difficulty reading the pink or the bright blue, but other than that, it's actually a pretty easy read, so that's pretty nice. There are 4 player aids that come with the game. Each of these will be given to a player, and these provide a summary of the various actions that you can do on your turn on one side, and on the other side are the various suspects that you're trying to whittle out to figure out who the murderer is from one of the 2 gangs. And thankfully, it is actually very easy to pull these apart, although the symbols on these are very small, so if you have sight issues, you could have difficulty telling what these symbols are, so that is something you will need to keep in mind. There are 2 time mats that come with the game, and they are separate. They're supposed to go together, basically just laid out next to each other like this. And this is meant to represent the 48 hours that you have to try to figure out the case. Each of these also has a similar setup. However, on the standard, it is actually divided into daytime and nighttime hours, whereas on the cooperative side, it actually does not have that actual separation of time of day. However, each of these do have these sections down here, and this is meant to represent a spot that you will place event cards. Same thing on this side. However, each of these has a different penalty that you will end up suffering if you end up getting too many of the event cards. Thankfully, the symbols are very easy to tell apart from each other, so you shouldn't have any issues with confusing them, which is very nice, as well as the numbers written on the actual spots on the times track, as well as the actual symbols on the standard side of the time track. I must say also very easy to see. Speaking of tracks, there is 4 time trackers that come with the game, 1 for each player, and this is how you keep track of time. Whenever you take an action on your turn, you'll move your time tracker along the track however many hours it takes to complete that action. There's also 4 badges that come with the game, 1 for each player, and these are what you're going to use to keep track of your badge level on your cards. And if it ever gets to above 9, you can simply flip it over and it says 10 plus on the backside, which is very nice. That's an easy way to keep track. I gotta say though, on a positive note, I am very happy with the fact that each of these badges actually has a different symbol on the badge for each of the different players. So if you are colorblind, you'll still be able to tell which badge belongs to you based on the symbol on it, which is very nice. Same thing goes with the cars that come with the game. These represent the players, and this is what you're going to be moving around the city, and it's just like the badges. They all have their own symbol on the back of the cars. So once again, if you are colorblind, you'll still be able to figure out which car belongs to you just by looking at the symbol on the backs of the cards, which is very nice. There's a small deck of ability cards, and these are special abilities that you can get later on in the game, whether it's spending some 1 time to subtract 1 die or add 1 die to your die result, or costing you 1 less to apprehend a gangster, or etc, etc. And the text on these are very, very easy to read, and it really does help that it's on a notepad, which is nice, so you shouldn't have any issues with reading them. There's a deck of event cards that come with the game, and these are going to be events that will happen in the city while you are attempting to solve the murder, whether it is a deal at the docks, or somebody stockpiling weapons, or the boss's orders, or public fear, whatever it may be. Each of these has an effect that will immediately trigger once you pull the card. It will have a restriction for the players as long as the card remains out here, which is represented by the little emergency symbol. And it also has a little reward that you will get if you successfully manage to resolve the events, which is very nice. The text on these are very easy to see as well, which is very nice, so you shouldn't have an issue with that. Although I am not entirely certain what the symbology on the bottom here is. I'm assuming it could potentially be another reward if you resolve the issue, but that is just a guess on my part. I actually just checked the rulebook and I was wrong on this bit here. The light green box is actually what you need to do in order to resolve the event, and the symbols down here is the reward that you will get if you do resolve the event. So I do apologize for that. There's a deck of force cards that come with the game, and these are also abilities that you can get at some point in the game. If you manage to get high enough on your badge levels, you can draw these cards, and then that's a special ability that you will have for the rest of the game. And thankfully, the text on the bottom of these cards are very easy to read, so that's very nice. So that means you should not have any issues reading them. And finally, there are a whole bunch of mobster meeples that come with the game. 5 for each of the 2 gangs, and then 5 representing a neutral gang, which could just be like smaller gangs that just run in the city. The 2 main gangs have a little symbol down in the corners of each of their meeples that represent the gangs that they belong to, and there's also a bag that comes with the game, and this is actually going to be where you place all the meeples into, and you'll just simply shuffle them up when the time comes for it, and you'll simply draw them out and place them on the board. So that is everything you will get if you obtain Tiny Epic Crimes. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to learn how to play Tiny Epic Crimes, or if you want to know my thoughts on it, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you all as always so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.